Welcome to my channel, my name is Philip, and today I would like to show you how to animate fingers. Fingers are actually a pretty broad topic and it's harder than you can expect to animate them correctly. So during my professional experience, I've gained some knowledge how to approach this topic, and I would like to show this to you right now on this video. Okay, so let's get started. I want to go through three general topics when we are animating fingers. So first of all, setup. Okay, we want to have a correct setup of fingers before starting our work. Then we will talk about correct controls, okay, and how to navigate them correctly and control them. And then we will move on to shapes and how to make them super appealing. Okay, so first of all, before we are starting your work, you don't want to just, start chaotically. Okay, first of all, you need to have some preparation. So for that, what I like to do is to bring those fingers together, okay, tighter. Some rigs has additional controllers on the top, okay, above your fingers here. There is only one control for now here in our rig, but for us it's enough, I think. Okay, so bring them tighter together because of course, since it's like a regular T-pose of the rig, those fingers aren't in the natural position, they're in the zero position, let's say. So I would like to just get some more natural position, okay, of the fingers, maybe something like that. I like to actually bring this slightly not only tighter but also lower to create this C shape here, and also here, you can just bring those fingers lower slightly. Okay, and that's enough. So we are not starting from some like a basic pose. It's actually more believable, more organic feeling. Okay, and whenever you will make a pose during your animation, you can make sure that it has this like a nice setup. Okay, so it's more believable. Then what you need to focus on is what kind of shots are you animating, and for example, if rig allows you to do that, you can actually switch sometimes from the F key control of the fingers to the I key control. So in this case, we are controlling our fingers through the rotation, and this rig unfortunately doesn't have the option to switch to the I key, but some characters gives you this possibility. So maybe if you are working in the studio, it's worth to, for example, ask your riggers to provide you with that option, or maybe you can create your own setup. You can just create an I key control on top of the rig. So think about this before animating. If you are working in the studio, maybe you can ask riggers to provide you with that kind of option, or maybe you can search for yourself on the rig setup, okay? It's just a good habit to think before moving on and before animating, because using the right setup might accelerate your work tremendously, okay? And you don't have to, for example, struggle for several hours. It's actually much easier to ask someone or to actually prepare yourself before going and starting animating straight away, okay? So this is the setup. So we need to create the nice shape before, and also you might think about implementing an I key controls for some of the shots, especially for the shots when you have the contact with the body of another character with some object. Maybe the hand has to maintain the contact with the table, with some object. Yes, so these are kind of situations when you would like to use an I key control for the fingers. Okay, then we need to talk about correct controls. So how I approach to animating fingers is I usually start my posing with selecting all of them simultaneously at the same time. Okay, so let's create our first pose, and I want to make sure that I have like a nice base. So each of my joint has, let's say, equal amount of the rotation on each joint. Okay, so for example, I'm starting from something like this if I want to create a pose. And you know what? Today we'll try to create like 3 poses. So first one would be more relaxed. So that's how I'm rotating them. You don't want to rotate them chaotically like this, right? Then this, and then here, And that's how usually, you know, people are actually ending up animating fingers. They're just chaotically selecting one joint and another one and another one, and you know, it's easy to mess it up. So I would suggest you to start as a base, to select all of them simultaneously together, and then if you want to refine it, if you want to add a little bit extra variety, you can just, you know, press it, place it, and then you can just, you know, move one controller like this, maybe one controller extra like this. Okay, but you already started with nice base. Okay, then we don't want to rotate fingers like that in that kind of setup horizontally. Okay, so like this. Because as you can see, I mean, fingers, they're not working like that. We only rotate fingers like this for this joint, okay, from the upper one. So if you want to get this finger further, don't be lazy, okay, don't just animate like this and okay, I will just move it here. No, you can't do that. You can actually, you need to unselect everything, press this, and then just rotate it, okay? And that's how you want to do that. You don't want to have any values on these rotations, anything like that. And if the rig is correct, actually, if it's made by some good rigger, it's usually supposed to be only one channel active, okay, and the other should be blocked. But if there is no option like this, it's easy to just forget about this. We don't want to rotate in wrong axes. Okay, another really important topic that you should worry about is that most animators are actually following this trap, in this shortcut, that we don't want to use channel box as an animation solution for our fingers. Okay, sometimes there is some shortcuts, some predefined poses of your fingers already in the channel box. It's by selecting some additional controllers like a palm, or there's supposed to be like some additional controls here, but there is nothing like that in this rig. Anyway, sometimes you will have this solution provided by the rigger, and you don't want to use that, because how it works is basically it doesn't create keys on the controllers. First of all, it's just manipulation by the attribute. So you don't want to have two things responsible for one option. So for example, you have some animation on the controllers and some on the attribute editor. It will create a mess in your animation, and you don't want to do that. Okay, and on top of that, it will also manipulate the whole hand simultaneously, okay? So it will create a change on every finger in the same exact time, and we want to avoid that. As an animators, you remember probably that there is a rule that we need to create a breakdown between body parts. So, for example, we want to avoid the feeling that everything moves and stops at the same exact frame. So, in order to avoid that, yes, you can just use a shortcut for that. Okay, and you have to actually delay one finger from another in the polishing phase. But if you will have that kind of overlapping animation through the channel box, then it will be pretty messy. And maybe you will find out that, well, I need to counter animate things. Maybe I have two things interacting with each other. I don't know how to control them. So yes, please avoid them at all cost. Just use a manual solution animating like that. Okay, so this is our relax pose right now. And here we have the last point, which are the shapes. So really the toughest thing is to achieve the nice shapes with your fingers. And it's actually tough, especially if you don't have any previous experience with any visual media. So what I would suggest you, if you are struggling with this topic and you don't know where exactly to start, what you need to do is start drawing. You have to draw a lot of stuff, a lot of fingers and hands. This is even hard topic for someone experienced with drawing, but this will create the visual library in your mind, okay, on how to create appealing shapes, okay, and the poses, and how does it behave basically in the different situations. Okay, so I'm trying to create my second pose here. so fist. And as you can see, well, we can, for example, select everything at the same time, like this. Okay, so here I took these fingers, tighter, and right now we can just make sure that they are even closer to each other, like this. So, of course, yes, you have to draw a lot, and that's how you can only get visual reference, basically, by looking at the object and by studying them. So, what we need to do, if I approach the topic of fingers, I want to achieve a nice arc through the fingers. Okay, so for example, here, instead of just having like a flat line like this, okay, I'm trying to create a nice flow through the fingers. So I really want to keep this line always whenever it's possible, to create some sort of curvature through the fingers. And this allows you to basically create like a nice flow, helps you to make them look appealing. There is a fine line between overcomplicating stuff and being too, let's say, boring. So what I like to do is I like to create this like a base, okay, C shape, and maybe connect them all of them together. And then at some point I'm trying to add one finger that is going slightly, the opposite, like is going further from each other, okay? And you can do that, for example, not only with this finger, but you can actually do it with just this one, okay? And this looks, pretty appealing. And you don't want to move all of them outside of this flow, maybe just one. Yeah, and because of that, it looks pretty interesting. Okay, so we've covered line, we've covered this topic, and I want you to also take care about creating a flow with the forearm. So if you take a look from the top, your arm, it creates some sort of, like a line, okay? You don't want to fight with that, you want to support it, okay? And in order to do that, you constantly have to be aware where it's happening and in what situation you can just push it. Okay, so in this case, if we have like that kind of pose from the top view, especially if the camera sees that from this perspective, you want to support this arc. Okay, so you probably would like to create this kind of line like that to support this curvature. And just take a look during your animation on the forearm position and always try to support it with the palm and fingers. Okay, and the last part would be getting a nice silhouette. So make sure, for example, instead of showing your arm like this, okay, which is not super interesting as most of the time. Right now it's pretty okay because this finger is actually going out. But if we have something like this, it's not as interesting if we turn on the silhouette mode as this, okay, pose. Because take a look, it has much more variety. There is some empty space between these fingers here. There is a lot of different contrast things. So it's actually pretty interesting from this side. If you are just showing the palm or fingers, instead of showing this like that to the camera, try to maybe keep it like this. Okay, and it's most of the time it's more interesting because of the amount of detail and variety. If you're not sure about how strong is the silhouette in your animation, you can always press this button, right? Okay, so we have this pose, then we have a fist pose. Yep, so this is like a problem. Maybe we need to translate this just to get rid of the, like the space between fingers. Okay, I think I pushed this too much, too far. Yep, it's supposed to be like this. That's cool. So we have this pose, and what you can do also, if you will work in the professional environment, you can always use a studio library tool, and you can create predefined poses for your fingers. Especially if you're animating one character for a long time, it's really worth it to just spend some time on creating this library and just, copy them and use them as a base to your animation. And that's how you are actually working within the professional environment. Especially if there is a longer project, there is some animators who are responsible for creating these pre-development tools, like posing and like some animations, and then other animators are just copying this and using this as a base. Okay, so we have a fist pose, and here I think we can just create more like a pressure pose. Okay, and the last thing, so sometimes it's just annoying, just select all of them together just to, for example, create a pose on every joint that you're animating, and you don't want to do that, okay? Especially if there is like some other objects and it got messy. How you can avoid that pretty simply is, first of all, by having a picker, having something like a predefined picker which allows you to select your body parts without this, but in actually separate window. You can do that. I'm not using this for this kind of rig. Or you can just create your own predefined button. Okay, so this is a script editor, and here is the story. Okay, like here's the history of your operations. You want to clean this. You have like an empty shelf right now. You want to move to the animation tab. And here you go, you can just select everything and yep, just use this operation, Control A, and you can just move it here. And with Mel or Python, whatever are you using, in this case Mel, so whenever you're hitting this button, then you're activating this last operation. So it's just cool, easy way to create some shortcut for the fingers selection. Okay, so right now we will make a third pose. So in this pose we will try to make it look like he's casting a spell. So probably we'll add some more pressure to the fingers, a lot of detail, a lot of variety to each finger joint. And yeah, let's do it. So right now it's pretty relaxed, and I want to add some pressure. Maybe spread them a little bit, get them further away. As you can see, I'm moving them separately because we don't want to actually achieve this a nice flow between the fingers. That's why I'm trying to move them separately actually. And make sure that one of the fingers, at least one of them, are connected to each other like this, and just make sure that the distance between each finger here, okay, it's not the same, it's not equal. So we want to have difference between them. It's not like the more contrast you get, the more interesting pose. You have to keep the nice balance between adding variety and having the nice, let's say, connection between all of them. Okay, so I think this is a pretty cool pose. So right now we have 3 poses for our Doctor Strange character. Right now we have relaxed pose, like this. Looks pretty cool. Then we have a fist pose. And at the end we have a casting spell pose. Hopefully you like this video and it gives you some nice introduction to this topic, and maybe you're more confident after watching this. And if you feel lonely in your journey, what I recommend is joining to our Facebook group, because we are releasing that kind of rigs every month, and we are also hosting the challenges for animators, and you can just join, you can compete with other animators, win some prizes, So thank you for watching. If you like this video, then subscribe and press the like button, and see you in another episode. Bye.